Wow, thanks so much for coming here, guys. I'm really honored to be here. Lloyd, I want to thank Lloyd. Let's just give it up for Lloyd for his amazing wife and all the food. And wisely, he made me 2 name tags because I know my last name's a little tricky. So this is the real spelling, F-E-U-C-H-T, and F-O-Y-T is the phonetic way to say it, FOYT. There's a lot of interesting variations I've heard throughout the years. So, but I'm really, really honored to be here, and honored to, to get the chance to represent all you amazing people. And before anything, I want to introduce my amazing campaign manager in the back. This is Eamon. Turn around. This is Eamon. Everyone say hi. This is Eamon. He just moved to Northern California with his 3 kids from Oklahoma, and when we had begun to go on this journey, and we knew that when we identified this district and what it would take to win, I really believe we would not only need a lot of money and a lot of support and volunteers, but we need high-level strategy. And so, man, God is so kind. I prayed. I was like, God, if you're telling us to do this, send us somebody, send us a campaign manager from heaven. And Eamon has become that. He led the campaign for the governor of Oklahoma in 2018, and he was one of 10 Republican candidates, and the governor was, and he was lowest name ID, and they raised $14 million, and Eamon's the brainchild. And so just really honored that he would come here to run this race and believe in this. So I don't want to just talk the whole time, because I really want to hear from you guys on what's on your heart. And as much as I want to share why I'm doing this, I also want to hear what are the important issues for you and how I can represent you. To be honest, I was in D.C. yesterday and was meeting with some people on Capitol Hill and just getting a sense for this district and what the feel is out there. And on the incumbent, heard some very interesting things in Washington. But when I got on the plane, the Iran attack happened, and so I was really consumed a bit with that last night, because I've been engaged in Iraq for many years and had to have a team on the ground there, and so very interesting times in which we are living in. And I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers to all the issues, or maybe even all the answers to the questions that you're asking tonight, but I do have a willing heart to serve, and we do feel, me and my wife, I have 4 kids, ages 9, 7, 5, and 1.5, and I have probably faced a moment which many of you have faced, where this place is getting so crazy, should we just move, And I felt like we were called to dig our heels in the ground and to fight for our values and our freedom. And I have been so encouraged over the last 4 years, meeting so many beautiful people across the state. And I tell people, when I get the chance to travel, that there is a California inside of California that you haven't heard about. And so I'm really motivated. There's several things that motivate me to want to do this and to run this race. And I had no idea that I'm not a professional politician. In fact, this is the first suit I ever bought. I wore it for you guys tonight. Maybe overdressed a little, but I'm trying. But I do have 3 nonprofits. I've traveled around the world. I have 2 businesses. I have a real estate degree. I have a lot of experience in business. I have, 4 kids that keep me very engaged and humble and attentive to life. Have an amazing wife. I can't wait for you to meet her. She's incredible and believes in this race more than anything. And I really have a strong desire. I feel like that like what is being represented in District 3, I feel like we have a chance. And I actually was in the Oval Office. Some of you guys saw that. Last month, and I got to shake the hand of the president, and I told him, I actually shook his hand 3 times. I just wanted to get as many handshakes as I could.
You can never get enough.
I told him, hey, I said, yes, I have long hair, but I'm a conservative from California. And he looked at me and he's like, no way. And I said, yes, and there's people that support you, and we're going to start the red wave in California. He looked at me and he's like, come on, and it was really cool. But I believe that. I believe that this district is winnable. I believe that there are people that have been apathetic that are going to go to the polls, that are going to show up. We are feeling an incredible amount of momentum in fundraising. I think at this point we've probably raised more than any candidate in the last, 4 or 5 cycles up to this point in this race. And as many of you know, and as the conversations I've had, it takes money to, put a megaphone to Washington. And so that's a big part of our strategy. But also, I am just so over the insanity of this state and the way that, the overtaxation, the overregulation, the encroachment into our values, into, teaching kids 15 genders in kindergarten, and, what's happening in UC Davis with sex changes at 12 years old to kids, and of course, abortion. I would run this whole race just on the life. That to me is enough. 65 million babies aborted since 1973. I've been to too many prayer meetings not to take action in response to my prayer. So I would run just on that issue, just on the family issues. But the more that, I've lived in this state, and, I own 15 acres, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm a rancher farmer, because I'm not, but I love my 15 acres. But I don't like the government telling me which trees I can and can't cut down on my property. And I don't like the overregulation. I don't like all of the issues that we encounter that prohibit our freedom. And so there's so many things I could say, and I want to open it up tonight for specific questions, because I know you guys want to know where I stand and what I think about certain issues, and some of them I may have really great answers for, and some of them I may say, what do you think? Tell me what is on your heart and how you want to be represented. So really, really, really thankful to be here. Never knew, I'll tell you this, I'm 36 years old, and I'm not cutting my hair, by the way. And, people think that's a crazy thing, but I'll tell you, you don't see many members of Congress with long curly hair. And I think what they think is going to be, a deficiency will be a greatest asset, because it's very memorable. Everybody is, when we go to places, they're like, oh, you're the guy with long hair. You're the conservative millennial guy with long hair. I'm not cutting my hair, but I'm also not going to pretend that I'm a politician. I really want to run this with the values that I believe, and me and Eamon were talking on the way down here, I'm not going to play the game. I'm not like the incumbent that went to Harvard and has, he's been in government, longer than I've been alive. He's got 4 pensions. Somebody told me tonight, he's got 4 different pensions in the government. And my honest opinion, I don't think he cares too much. I think he's to the place where I don't know that he cares too much about, what people think. He's got a lot of money in the bank and is probably not expecting a fight. But there is a story of David and Goliath. Anybody read that story?
Oh yeah.
And I believe that 2020 is the year when we're going to see a great turnaround in this state. And I'm very optimistic, and I just appreciate you guys coming tonight to support. So with that, I'll just open up questions that you may have.
What do you think of the real ID?
That is a very good question. I saw that in the airport when I was checking in. And I think it's October. October is when they institute that, right?
This year.
Deadline.
Yeah, it's a deadline to have one.
And you have to have that in order to fly.
And it's every state in the nation, by the way. It's not just California. Everybody.
Or a
Except
passport.
passport, you don't have to do one.
That's true.
To fly, but what about to drive?
You don't need it to drive.
Illegal aliens have it.
Well, eventually every license will become a real ID license.
Right.
Right?
And I mean,
You can't buy ammo.
Oh, you know that.
here I'll tell you this. You can't buy ammo.
Federal limits apply stamp is on it. Or you get the golden bear, which is real ID.
I kind of want to hear what he thought of it.
Well, I'll tell you. I do think it. I mean, I think it's crazy already, the overregulation that we have, and I think it's wild that I have to look at the requirements for what you have to do. I really just noticed it the other day at the airport, because they looked at my license and they said, "Oh, this is not going to be valid in October." And I'm like, "What do you mean this is not going to be valid?" So
The real problem is that a lot of people are going into DMV and they're re-registering you as non-NPP.
Yes.
And then you cannot vote in the primary if you're that way. You can't vote for a Republican candidate in the primary in California.
You have to have a party affiliation to vote.
Have to have a Republican Party affiliation in order to vote Republican
So
in the
let me
primary.
ask you, I know you're asking me, but I want to ask you, what do you feel like the agenda is behind the Real ID?
I think it's an end game run around to the national ID code that they've been trying to put on Americans for many, many years. And without it,
Who said the mark of the beast?
It's there.
it's a precursor to the mark of the beast. That's what I think. In other words, we're coming to a point where if you don't have it, you don't get any service
Right.
here, or you don't get any service
Let me
here.
ask you this, this is the part where I learned from you, what are the requirements that you need in order to get one?
You have to prove your citizenship or where you were born and all
Okay.
that. You know, you got to prove who you are.
Would you need the Real ID in order to vote?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
But you need a real ID to get on federal legislation.
You can be dead and vote in California.
Oh, we know that. We know that.
What gets me is what they're requiring for this ID is the same stuff you did when you first got your license. It's the exact same process. Your birth certificate, your social security card. But the only difference is now they're requiring 2 letters that came to your address to prove that's where you live. That's the only difference. Other than that, it's the same process. So why
They
do
want
they
to prove where you live, yeah.
Well, this is what I tell people when they talk about Medicare for all and giving over control of medicine to the government. I'm like, have you ever been to the DMV? Have you ever seen it being run? Because when I moved to California, I had to get a driver's license. I was like, good night. Anything that the government runs in the states feels like a disaster. So
It is.
I mean, I definitely want to look into that. That issue has actually never come up in any conversation. So thanks for making me aware of it.
I'll tell you how efficient it runs. I went in October 19th to apply for mine, to get a temporary that's no good on December 17th. I go in December 30th to rectify the fact that nothing showed up in the mail with my new license on it. They told me, oh, you're gonna have to reapply. So I reapplied, and then they took me to a window and said, oh, you're gonna have to wait. I gotta look something up. 40 minutes I waited, and she forgot about me. I went over there and made myself known at the door, and she took me back to another window. And then they tell me, oh, it was denied, so we couldn't send it out to you. I already have a license in the state. I was born and raised here. But they denied my real ID.
Oh, I got a good ID story. So I went to Sportsman's Warehouse the other day because I have these. I don't know if you should film this part, but I have these woodpeckers that are just destroy my trees. And so I just wanted to get some shells for my BB gun or my 22. And I go in, and I mean the process to get ammo is so outrageous.
Yeah.
So I'm it's 22 shells. Like this is all I want, right? With the gun that's already registered here, that was already bought here, already my address, and they swipe my ID, and it denied it 3 times. You know, and they're getting really nervous, and I'm like, and I had turned and looked at the screen, the computer jumbled my first and middle name together, which had me in the system wrong, like automatically, and so thankfully I caught that. Otherwise I would probably be in prison. So anyway, yes.
So how did the woodpeckers taste?
Oh man,
Don't
I went
answer
to,
that. Don't
yeah,
answer
I'm not
that.
answering
Don't
that.
Josh is having his hand up.
Yes.
So you came to one of our committee meetings a couple months ago.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, you were living in Reading, correct?
Yes.
That's outside the district.
Yes.
Is that still true?
Yes.
What's your plan for
Yeah.
moving
Yeah, at that committee meeting, I mentioned that, you know, my kids are in school, and that's where we're at right now. I'm about 60 or 50 something miles from the line, and I do plan to move into the district after I win.
After you...
Yes.
Well, they had to redo the lines just to have Garamendi run, so.
Yeah, I think the first few cycles he didn't live in the
He did
district.
not live in the district.
I don't know if he lives in it now, but
Can I ask?
yes.
Because,
Yep.
you know,
What's her name?
Maxine Waters doesn't live in her district. And it always kind of rubbed me the wrong way that, like, how can she represent Compton and not
Right.
live there? How do you feel about that? I mean, do you,
She wouldn't be allowed. She lived
are
What's
you,
your
are
connection
you,
to, what's your connection to the district?
Well, I would say this. I think for me, like, I have such a heart for California. I live a pretty similar lifestyle as people, definitely in the northern part of this district. But I think I've spent probably the last 10 years heavily invested in the faith space in different communities, different churches throughout the district. So I have a lot of relationships and a lot of energy that we've spent investing into people here. And so I do feel connected in that sense, in relationships. And I think you could, look at our history and look at our friendships and see that. But again, I think that District 3 represents, we just need to take a stand in California. Like, I feel like people in California need hope. And I think that District 3 I think it's volatile. I think it's winnable. I think that there's, when we look at the data, when we're at the NRCC, we see that there's a lot of conservatives, but a lot of them over the last couple cycles have just disengaged. So we want to give them a reason to fight. We want to give them a reason to show up. We want to get the churches registered to vote, for crying out loud. 15% of Christians in California are registered to vote. If all of them were registered to vote and voted according to their principles, this entire state would turn around overnight. So, those would be some of my answers. I think, we've been down here quite a bit. We're going to be down more. We want to have tons of nights like this to hear from the issues and so you can feel our heart. It's just hard when you have 4 kids that are in school and you're like, we've talked about it. We're like, let's get it. My wife's like, let's just finish the school year. So I would say probably even more towards the summer, we'll be looking for places at that point.
She has a question.
Yes.
I'm just curious as to what you think of our hopes of becoming a sanctuary area. In other words, for the Second Amendment, I think we need to be a sanctuary county, state.
Where's that book of Dana?
Second Amendment is important to us here in this county, and the gun grabbers are at it all the time.
Grabbing Newsom.
Actually,
Yeah.
can I comment on that real quick?
Yeah.
I think it's really important because, like you said, the left has created that narrative that, if you want to keep your guns, you have to be a sanctuary city, right? But that's actually exactly the opposite. It's a constitutional right.
That's right.
Right.
And so that's something that, we can't speak that language and promote their narrative that we have to protect, our own area as a sanctuary, because the truth is, you have a constitutional right. And they promote that language for that reason, is that, we'll only have small areas that get to have guns, right? And those will be out in the woods. But that's just not the way.
I'm not
it's designed.
referring to that. I'm talking about each individual's ability to defend themselves and their family and have guns and ammo for that.
Well, I'll tell you this. So, okay.
Like
So
Texas.
so you know what just happened in Texas, right? We all saw that, right? 3 seconds response, right?
Yeah.
Well, my church, which, my kids go to school at, because my kids, and this is a big part of what we need to fight against. My kids, because it's a church, but it's also a school, only retired sheriffs are allowed to carry. Only retired sheriffs are allowed to carry on the campus there. And so, of course, they do all the drills and all the stuff, but it's like, my kids go there, and it's like, I am genuinely concerned, and especially when you're at a church like that, where it's could be in some people's eyes as a little more controversial, a place that's known, it would be easy to get targeted. Now, I can't say that everybody always may abide by that, thankfully. Again, be careful. But
you're right.
That's a real issue. And for me, the motivation is, good guys with guns is important to protect. And that's the thing about my kids in school, is they're stripping us of that right, not only the nuisance of having to stand there for 30 minutes for 22 shells at Sportsman's Warehouse. That's just annoying, but I am concerned about that. So I mean, we have to take a stand in Washington, and we have to take a stand on the federal level to bring freedom in that. In terms of the sanctuary thing, I defer. I have to look more into that specifically, but just Second Amendment rights.
Second Amendment is huge.
It's what Virginia did when the Democrats won that state. The governor said, okay, I'm gonna start doing these gun registration confiscation laws. And that's when Virginians and the counties got their sheriffs and whoever runs the local government to issue sanctuary counties. They got the idea, obviously, from Northern California, or from California, for all the sanctuary cities that are violating federal law. So they're having sanctuary counties to keep their constitutional rights. And there's a big thing right now, the governor's gonna spend all this money and try to hire and do a team of
18.
some type of cop, law enforcement that's gonna go around at 18-man team and take guns. Well, I can't see them doing it because they're gonna be met with people like me who aren't gonna give them up. And I'm law enforcement. Our two counties, our sheriffs are great.
Yes.
They're not like the rest of the state, so.
Right.
Well, and I think a lot of the Northern California counties are just like ours.
Central California.
Yeah, central and northern.
Northern.
You get down Sacramento, not so much.
Because the
Not so
politicians
much.
live there.
Not at all.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying not so much. Yeah, so, and you go further south, it's even worse. So,
Your district goes over to Vacaville, right?
Just Vacaville.
So it covers Davis,
Yeah.
Yes.
so they're included.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you have Davis,
Very liberal. People's Republic of.
Davis.
Yeah, Davis and Solano. So
Mhm.
yes, sir.
Do you have any real programs or ideas of what you're gonna do for us to keep our guns? If you don't, I wanna put one forward.
Let me hear your idea.
Constitution of the United States has to be, if you want to change the Constitution, you have to have 3/4 of the vote,
Right.
right off the bat. California and all other states that are taking our guns are bridging this law just by having it, nobody talking about it, nobody acting on it. But if Governor here says he wants all of our guns by tomorrow, I'm gonna tell him and every politician I can get a hold of. Now, I have a family, I have children, I have grandchildren, I have duties, I have to have money. You're turning thousands of crooks loose in our state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if he does that and then asks for my gun, my answer is gonna be, Governor, when they take yours and you give up that one over there that guy's got guarding you, and you throw yours away, I'll throw mine away. But I will not give it to you if you don't give up yours.
Sheriff is the ultimate authority in every county,
Yes.
so we're lucky in this.
I mean, that's what
We're
we
very
know
lucky.
of.
Constitutional sheriff.
You're only one vote away from a bad sheriff. Just like freedom's only one vote away from the Constitution.
Generation.
In actuality, our Bill of Rights is the strongest law, just like your campaign manager said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is, and I think
It's
that's
stronger
why.
than the sheriff.
I think that's why returning back to the Constitution and originalist. I think that's going to win every time, and that's why we have to elect leaders to uphold that. It's our basic rights.
I know that you sell guns, right? So,
No, I teach them.
okay,
I
she
teach- I'm an
teaches,
instructor.
and then, but the gun salespeople, I think they need to go. I think they're responsible, but how are these guns getting to these criminals? That are holding up the stores and they're using it on innocent people. That's, I just think we need to, fine tune the stats of who can purchase
I think we
it.
can do a better job
Yeah.
with the
Licensing.
mentally ill. I think that's one
Yeah.
area we can really. I think that we're not. That's a very. That's something that we can probably all agree on.
Yes.
is step up the regulations for the mentally ill, but you can, some of the red flag laws infringe, I think, on if your neighbor says that you're volatile, it's like then they take them away. I mean, some of it's hearsay. So I'm into strengthening. I think that it was the NRA that worked with the governor of Arizona on a legislation, and I was looking at it the other day, that does just what I'm talking about, strengthens the, because if you look at a lot of these last shooters, mass shootings, I mean, a lot of them have that commonality, is they're mentally...
Total pattern.
Yeah.
Hi. Okay, so if we send you to Washington, what does your day one look like? What are your platform, keys? What are your focuses? What are you passionate about? What bills, ideas do you have to put forward?
Well, I think probably first of all having the healthy, revelation that congressmen can only accomplish so much, and I think that realizing, okay, like I want to identify the things that align to my values, that align to the district's values, things, I'm passionate, like I mentioned, I'm passionate for the unborn. Like I want to fight for life, I want to fight for families, I want to fight for the overregulation and control of government on education. I want to fight for lower regulations that are crushing these farmers, and I was just talking to them and hearing, what's affecting them. I want to fight for lower taxes. I want to fight for, we got to do something with this homelessness epidemic, I want to find creative solutions. I was on the phone today with a brilliant guy, Sam Skinner. You guys have heard of him? Okay, he's just an incredible national voice. He transformed the city of Dallas, Texas. It was one of the highest, cities in America for homelessness, and he came in and had kind of a three-pronged approach and really transformed that entire city. There's hardly any homelessness now in that city, and I think that I would love to.
So what would your idea be?
I would love to be in a.
It's huge here.
For homelessness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
What
well, I think I would start with identifying the fact that what's worked in the past, and how do we get to where we are right now. Well, what's worked across the board most of the time in these areas is when you work with, I believe, faith-based organizations. I think that you can see a commonality in places across America where it's worked. There's great partnership with faith-based. Now, California is like almost anti-faith-based.
Right.
And they, I have, I can't, we went the other day to a friend of ours, his church in Fairfield, and we walked in his church, amazing church that does outreach, and they were just, homeless, they had destroyed the front of his entire church. Needles everywhere. And he's not really allowed to do anything. He can't help. He's got to call the cops, and they don't always show up and move him out. And every Sunday before church, he has to basically have a whole crew that comes and just cleans the whole front of his church and picks up the needles so that little kids walking to Sunday school don't pick them up. So I think working with faith-based organizations, I think attacking the mental illness issue that is pervasive across that, and how can we find resources that identify that and help those people. I think also you can connect the rise of crime in a lot of communities to the rise of homelessness. I think there's a connection there, and the bummer is that even San Francisco right now, which has become a mess, the numbers of tourism has dropped dramatically. People don't want to visit anymore, and it's crushed the economy. And so there's all these connections. I think affordable housing is connected to that, and I think
opioids.
But opioids, yeah. District 3, this is the worst district in California for opioid crisis.
Really?
Yeah, this one, I was just with an expert. He's spent 40 years in the last, several administrations creating policy, and he said, District 3 is the worst in California for opioid addiction. And I think there's a correlation from that to homelessness as well. So I think those are the approaches. I do know this, it's getting worse. And the people that, the line is that the same people that got us into this mess are not going to be the ones to get us out. So we have to find creative solutions, and I'm passionate about that.
Okay, you're up in district, right now you're living
Ready.
So why is it you're running in this district? What attracts you to this district?
Well, it's kind of
Why
the
is
same
it-
thing that I mentioned to them a minute ago. I really, I have a long history of investing into the communities around here and to specifically the churches. And probably the last 10 years, I spent a lot of time here. The other thing is I think if you look at this district, it's one of the most ethnically diverse. I've probably been to 50, 60 nations in the last 15 years. I've spent a lot of time. I was just on the phone today with some amazing Indian pastors. There's 11% Indian population in District 3. I've been to India 23, 24 times. And I love those communities. I feel like I have a real connection to their way of life. So I love how diverse it is. It's very young and millennial, but the millennials are not coming out to vote. They're not engaged, similar to the churches. So I just see some things in this district that I feel like are important for, not even just for California, but for the nation. To see millennials not their narrative not be created by the AOCs in Congress, but to have a leader that, I have 3 nonprofits. All of my employees are all millennials. Most of the events that I do are across America, they're all millennials. And so I feel like a big part of why we're stepping into this is to create a platform for dialogue and thinking on, hey, wake up, snap out of the crazy left liberal mindset. Let's think for our families, for the future of our kids, and this district represents that. So.
The other thing,
Yeah.
San Diego doesn't seem to have the homeless problem that the other big cities have. And I think, from what I heard, it's the focus on the mental aspect of it. So they focus on helping the mentally
Right.
ill,
Yeah.
and
And I think that what if we took the resource? I think I was reading an article. It's $60,000 per homeless they spend in San Francisco, I think, on just entitlements. What if you took those resources and, instead of giving people a hand down, give them a hand up, what if you poured that into, because the issue is always like, well, what do you do with the mentally, but what if you poured those resources into the mentally ill institutions to help those specific people? I've met a lot of people that are not mentally ill as well, and I think that we need to give those people an opportunity to get out. And the DA of San Francisco handicapped the police force and the people. They're not prosecuting anybody for crimes that are not at least worth $1,000. So that's part of the issue, is the homeless are breaking in and wrecking stuff. And I just had a buddy's car got broken into. It's rampant. So there's a lot of lawlessness is attached to that issue as well.
Not only is the lawlessness, you steal a handgun, they don't do anything anymore.
Now that's crazy.
That's the part that's amazing.
If you kill someone with a stolen gun,
So Sean, I'm a 3rd generation farmer in Sutter County. My son will be a 4th. He's farming with me right now. I have 2 boys. We farmed in California for 5 generations. And I don't know where we're going with agriculture. I am concerned that my kids will no longer be able to farm because of the over-regulation. You mentioned it earlier. Just get out of our way, let the market system prevail.
Right. Yeah.
And don't
For
make
everything.
all the
But
regulations.
everything, yeah.
We have lost so many things. We're conventional farmers, so we use pesticides and herbicides. Not everybody can be organic. There's not enough animal waste in the world to provide organic feed, growing organic crops, and then also nobody can afford it. Organic is more expensive
Right. Yeah.
than conventional.
Yeah.
And if you want to feed a hungry world, you're going to do it conventionally.
Totally.
And I don't know, just over-regulations, lack of chemicals, the lack of labor, the overreach of government on every issue from water, wastewater, drainage, ability to get water to irrigate your crops in the future because of the government reach for water grab. I mean, that's why, I think that's why a lot of the cases, they've done the setbacks and levees. They've gotten most of the riparian water when they did that. And that makes the aquifer healthier if you have that riparian water. Now you're not gonna have that, so you're gonna rely more on well water. I mean, it's just everything. It's not one thing, it's everything across the board. And my wife thinks I sabotaged our oldest son because, got him, he's a farmer and my other son works in government. he works for Gun Cunning in the building department, but it's just, it's concerning.
Let me ask you this, why do you feel like, and I was talking to these guys about it, it seems like the incumbent kind of plays the farmer rancher card, and
Yeah,
you know, and
I've known John for a long time.
Do farmers vote for him? I mean, where's the disconnect? Because I hear your same story quite a bit.
We have, I think a lot of farmers in the past have supported him, and I know when he first ran, I opposed him, and he came to me and he knew that. And he came to me and he said, let me prove myself. And he, in the first couple terms, he did pretty good. Come a little bit on the left side now. I don't think he thinks he needs us as much as he used to. And
Interesting.
I think that.
So do you think that farmers just support him out of habit and because it's what they've always done, or do you feel like everybody's feeling this?
I think there's a lot of that, and I don't even know that he might go after big agriculture's money a little more, but he doesn't go too much after the regular Joe farmer too much.
He's got seniority, you know.
Oh,
so
right.
And he's got a ton of money.
So that's kind of, you know, there's a thing with that. Your guy gets up and up and up and up, and so he's got clout. And you know, there's other issues that come up: water, levy things, getting money from the feds, you know.
And he has helped on certain issues.
And he has helped over the years do things, you know, bring in, you know, stuff to us.
But it seems like to me, and this is where I feel like I think where this race really means something for the state and the nation is, he's 74 years old. He's been in politics longer than I've been alive. He's a professional politician that's made bank, right? And he's not really that popular. And, you know, and that's why hopefully we can get on stage together so people can just see the difference. You know, I'm 36, millennial. I need to learn a lot, but I'm not a professional politician, and I'm not in this to be a professional politician. I want to stand up for the people. So that's why I think I feel like that there's people that are sleeping, and I want to identify some of those issues. I mean, I know the overregulation thing. I talked to a farmer that I was telling these guys not long ago. He when the EPA regulations changed, he wasn't supposed to use any of his equipment. But there's only one city in China that he can buy equipment from, and it's like $5 million, and it's going to take him a year to get it. And he's like, what am I supposed to do until then? So he's essentially operating, you know, illegally, but these things crush people. And I think, you know, we were talking about protect the salmon sperm, but kill the farmers. You know, it's like so much of that over-regulation. I mean, I could go into the issues with the fires, you know, and the 1.2 million trees, underbrush that aren't cleaned up across the state. I mean, I think those commonalities are in every area of life. It's literally just more governmental control over every area of life. And so, but I appreciate that. I
think farmers that have the boots on the ground literally feel it more than the average person in the city, because they're impacted more greatly every step of the way.
I would agree, but I would also say that, and this is the connect too, because honestly, this race is going to be lost or won in Solano. It's 47% of the district. It's where the mid-30s-year-old soccer mom that doesn't like Trump is going to have to find a cause and a reason why. And this is why we've had my wife really engaged in this race, because it's important for, you know, those women that don't want mandatory vaccinations on their kids, and they don't want, you know, they don't want 15 genders being taught in kindergarten, and they don't want their school chosen for them. These are the issues, but there's the same issues. They're governmental overreach and control. They just feel it in a different way.
Right.
You know, they're paying $4.50 for gas. I mean, I think, I would say, I feel like they're experiencing it, maybe not in the same ways you are, but I think that they're all experiencing it. So we're hoping to energize people on that angst. If you look at the last few cycles, it's, you know, a Republican and a glass of water with an R over it is going to get 40 to 45%, 42%, 43%. But that last 7-8% is going to be one on issues. It's not going to be one because people like Trump. It's going to be one on what are the specific issues that are moving people across party lines. The no party preference vote, it's millennials, it's minorities, it's people in suburban, and I think it's farmers too that rise up, you know, in these districts. But I really believe that everyone is feeling the pain that you are, just in different areas of their life.
It's a two-part question. Did you follow the Bundy Ranch takeover, and also how deep are you into your Constitution?
Did I follow the Bundy Ranch takeover? I don't, refresh me here. Probably not.
That was down in Las Vegas where the feds went.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, yes. And they took a stand, and they were the cows. Yeah. I follow that a bit, probably not as much as you, but.
Okay, I was just curious. So how deep are you into your Constitution?
I mean, I'm diving in as much as I can. I mean, that is the document that, you know, I mean that's what I want to stand for. I believe everything in that document is what liberates us and frees us to where we are.
So the reason I asked that, you know, like we were at a meeting Monday night. And I'm pretty much guarantee that none of those public servants that swore an oath to the Constitution can tell you hardly anything about it.
Oh, come on.
That's what I think. Well, I'm just telling you what I think.
Well, I mean, think about this. I hear this a lot. I hear this a lot. Well, you're 36, and you know what gives you the experience? And I go, well, you know, there's a 29-year-old bartender right now that's in Congress, that's never ran a business, that's never had kids, that's never owned a home, that's never paid a mortgage, that's never had to deal with, you know, and she's creating the narrative. I'm like, why not a guy that's had 3 nonprofits, that's traveled the world, that's run 2 businesses, that has 4 kids? I mean, there's a lot of things I need to learn. I would be honest with you guys, but
I think you're on target with that millennial and the Solano County and all that. I think that's a smart.
I mean, I think that's what the data proves, you know, and you know, all of the past elections, it's Solano that comes in and just crushes it, and that's where he wins. And then folks like you guys aren't represented.
You said you have 3 nonprofits.
Yes.
What are they?
So, Sean Feucht Ministries, Burn 24/7, Light a Candle. One of them is a personal nonprofit that I use when I'm speaking and I write books and music and stuff. Another one is a worship and prayer ministry that I do, and another one is a missions organization. And so with that missions organization, we're in over a dozen countries around the world and help people, and this is a big part of the reason we've engaged in the Middle East.
Well, you don't just help people. I mean, you go into where ISIS is and rescue refugees.
Yeah, I've been in a bulletproof vest where ISIS is a lot. I've been in North Korea.
Trafficking.
But, you know, all that aside, I'll tell you what, honestly, this is a darker realm than those. And I can tell you after the last 3 months, I understand why people don't want to do this.
This being politics?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, our family has been assaulted. I get nothing from this. I've read these articles. People have even written in the district. It's hilarious. Like, he's just doing this for his ego. I'm like, I was more liked before I announced I was going to run. You know, I have, you know, quite a following, and social media and I've done all this stuff. I'm doing this because I'm concerned about America. I'm concerned about the future of my kids. This is why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this for, I mean, nobody endures this. I mean, these people are crazy. You know, and I know that
people being
professional politicians. And it's why they hate Trump, because he's not one of them. And the Republicans don't like him, and the Democrats don't like him, and he's not playing by their rules. And so, hoping to pick up some
Pointers.
pointers from that. Yeah.
Have you been keeping up with the metering of our wells that they want to put in California?
I've heard about this.
Yeah.
They want to measure all the groundwater.
Yeah.
Because my property's on a well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, even for domestic.
For every
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That means homeowners, there's 4 people here, you can only have 50 gallons.
Oh, I heard that, and so you can decide if you want to wash your clothes or take a shower.
Yeah.
That's insanity. Does it have any momentum on it?
You know, I don't know. I just hear bits and pieces. A lot of people are paranoid over it.
Right.
Also, what about Sykes Reservoir?
Yeah. I want to learn more about that. I do.
Sykes Reservoir? It's been in studies for 40 years.
Yeah, that's what they were talking to me about that.
Because I think we could really use another reservoir to eliminate.
They don't just want it to eliminate.
See now, so what your competitor's done, he supported Sites Reservoir, and of course, Lamaffa River, he's supporting it as well. They work together on this. They work together on levee projects, but I think he just does that to.
Nothing gets done.
Well, you can support something that isn't gonna happen.
No, I think the levee projects have happened. I think
No, but
Sites
the reservoir itself.
Well, that reservoir hasn't.
Let me just tell you guys real quick how I feel like we're gonna win, and then I know it's already getting late, but and Eamon can chime in because he's a genius too. But I feel like we're gonna win this by raising more than any candidates raised, and you know that's a huge thing. I think we're gonna win this by knocking on more doors, making more phone calls, and getting out in all these communities more than ever before. We have enormous resources. I mean, these churches are stepping it up, and they're coming and they're helping us, and they're providing volunteers. You guys know they're providing volunteers, there's support. People are sick of it, and I think that you know, my prayer and belief is that things like the blackouts and things like, you know, these things that we're experiencing that are paining Californians, I think there is an underground angst in these communities. And I think that if we're willing to focus, you know, I think we're going to get the base support and work for that. But then I think we're going to win the last, you know, percentage targeting specific issues. And so I am a Republican through and through. I'm a conservative through and through. I have been my whole life. My parents have been, their parents have been. But I want to reframe the narrative when it comes to some of these issues, you know, and I want to bring millennials into the conversation.
You've got to show them that the government is the cause of the underlying
their ills.
cause
Yes, of course.
of these issues.
Yeah, and
they
I mean,
don't realize that they think that the government is
Right.
the solution, but really the government.
well, and
is the
reframe
problem.
the narrative. You know, Republicans, we have to reframe the narrative in California around immigration, and we're not just all mean and don't love people. We just want it to happen legally, and we want to, you know, there's good, amazing, beautiful dreamers that are in this state, and we need to find a pathway for them to be taxpayers and to engage in society. But we love them, you know, and I have the philanthropic history, I think, that backs that up, you know. So that's one area we have to reframe that dialogue. You know, we have to, and I'm just going to be honest with you, as a millennial, I might not be the youngest person here, I don't know how old you guys are, but
I'm younger.
but we're losing an entire generation. We're losing an entire generation, and I am rising up because I don't want to lose them. I do not. I am sick and tired of these radical leftists. I mean, 48% of millennials right now think socialism is a good idea.
It's because they carry the energy.
Do what?
That's because they carry the energy for the millennials.
They do. They carry the energy.
The Republican Party's dead.
You're right, and I'm going to be. Why not? I'm going to be vulnerable. I think in California the Republican Party needs some energy.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
And I think that, and I want to bring that, and you know, I appreciate your guys' patience as we navigate these issues and learn more. But I want to fight, and
One thing that really hurts us is California's not a player on the national stage, because all 55 of our electoral delegates go to the Democrats, because that's what LA is.
Right.
LA runs the states. We need to put back the district's representation, so the districts in outlying California get a say in the electoral process, so we have a vote in the elections.
yeah.
This nonsense about the state dictating where it goes by the state legislature doesn't hold it anymore.
But I'll tell you one thing: if we come in here in the dark of night with sleepy John Garamendi, and he doesn't know what's coming, and we raise more money, and we work harder, and we steal this district away, it will turn heads in DC, in California. I think it'll provide a lot of hope, and I don't think it's too crazy to think that way.
Hey, Sean, can you tell us what happened on the day you decided to run for office?
You mean like in my heart?
Yeah.
Well, I woke up and it was some crazy legislation that came down, some bill in the Capitol on, I think it was a sex education thing, or I forget, and I just was like, enough. This is crazy, you know. And I started calling my friends, and I'm like, do you think I'm crazy? Should I do this? And they're like, you're crazy, but you should do it. And then I looked at my wife, and to be honest, you know, something like this takes such a toll, you know, on families. It's brutal. Thankfully, my kids are not on the internet. They're not in the comment section, thankfully right now. But my wife looked at me, you know, and she's like, we have to stand up. And we know that these are prime years of our life, and things are really going well. I'm not doing this, you know, this is a deviation for me from you know, the path that we were going. But I can't unsee what I've seen now.
As you move down that path, do you feel God's leading you?
Yes, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
You can't do this if you don't feel God's leading you.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So a lot of these issues seem to be at the state level, where the state legislators.
That's a great
pass
question.
A lot of these, what kind of influence in the national can you have over some, like the vaccine laws?
Right.
You know,
Well, I think that the left really uses California as the beginning place to push these agendas.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, why am I, people are like, I've heard people say, well, you're going all over raising money, you know, why you can go Virginia and raise money and Texas raise money? I'm like, because conservatives care about California. Because what happens in California eventually comes over to their state. What happens in California goes to New York. What happens, and plus, it's hard to raise money in California. Just being honest. I mean, for conservatives, it's very, very difficult. I mean, if you look at even, you know, the incumbent's numbers, he raises almost all his money outside of the state. And, but to answer your question, you know, I think we have to turn things around here, and even at the federal level, you know, fight for some of these things here, and use California as a representation of how crazy it's becoming. I mean, there's two members in Congress that are causing this obscene, obsessive insanity that we're in the middle of, this impeachment, and they're both from California.
Yeah. Yep.
That's been the history, right?
And a couple trying to stop her from California.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this state, it matters a lot. I think it matters to God. It matters to the future of our nation. No-fault divorce was started here. The first, you know, marriage equality was started here. I mean, you just look at the banning of the straws. I was in some others. You know, it's like everything starts here.
Yeah.
So why not righteousness and justice? You know, why not a great turnaround? I don't know. I'm hopeful at this point. Maybe you'll ask me in a month, I might not be, but I'm hopeful right now. So anyway, thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate it. Thank you again for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Got him right here.